Yes, everybody who wants to go to the bathroom and flush the toilet, please put yourself on mute first.
And it's good to be with everybody. We are recording now, and we got a ton of people on from, we were just talking to Mark in Maui, all the way to Ryan, who's in a sailboat, Quincy's in Houston, and people are all from all over. So it's good to see you guys. Hey,
People want to be seen on
the
Zoom.
chat box, by the way. Quincy, I'm going to quote you first off. Say it loud and say it.
I'm not.
What? Complete my sentence. Say it loud and say it.
Network is your network.
Proud. Say it loud and say it proud. Tell people what you do.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing it right now. I'm doing this stuff.
And say hello to the chat box. We've got a ton of people on.
No problem. No problem.
Everybody. There we go. But Quincy and Wendy, you're like my special guest today.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I'm special, all right, but not in the way you think.
There are so many pages of people that are on. It's hard to keep track of them all, but just a few other people. David Tilney, it was really good to reconnect with you last night. It was awesome, actually. I really enjoyed it. Michael Jake is on again. It was good to see you last night also, Michael. So Quincy and Wendy are sort of my special guests this beautiful day. And I just want to talk a little bit about doing good deals. And then we're going to talk through keeping your mindset good. You know what? I had somebody tell me this morning they watched somebody's YouTube or podcast. I don't think it was mine, but they said all of the news was so negative that they had to turn it off. And I don't want this to become like that. I want this to become like, yeah, it's a really challenging time, but I do think beyond the challenges, the opportunities are going to be some of the best of our entire lifetime, potentially.
No question.
So, you know, we're going to get through this together. Sounds like a political commercial. We are. And then eventually things are going to shift, and then we're going to have opportunity to do really well. I think personally, I don't know what you two think. I'm like in between you on my screen. I love it. But I think like you can make a lot of money during a really good economy, tons of money. But I think during a recession and a downturn, you can build even more wealth than you can make good income in a good economy. It's just a matter of getting your mind wrapped around that and being ready to take a shot at it. If it's your first recession, you're going to have to buckle up. You're going to have to cut your expenses. You're going to have to do a lot of things that are a little bit painful. This is my second recession as a full-time real estate investor. So I feel like I'm in a lot better shape than I was for the first one. Quincy, say hello. I mean, you look fabulous, Quincy. Doesn't he look great?
Mm-hmm.
You look healthy.
Well, of course, other than bobbing and shaking around a little bit, I'm good.
So is Quest is still open, right?
Yeah, we never shut down for one single day.
Mm-hmm.
I just received money from them for a closing that we're doing in 2 hours. Thank you, Quincy.
Well, you're welcome. I worked really hard on that one.
See, he didn't even know.
You guys are
No, but
doing
that's, I think that's, I'm very proud of, you know, our staff. I'm not trying to put an advertisement out there, but, you know, the truth of the matter is we didn't miss a beat. 90% of our staff is working remotely, and we kept funding transactions and doing deals, and everything's still going.
Mm-hmm.
You've hit all of mine. I've had no issues whatsoever with any closings. And I've done a lot of them with Quest over the last 3 or 4 weeks. So it's really good. No issues whatsoever. And you guys are doing a lot of education, Quincy, too. I was on, I think 2 Saturdays ago with Nate, and there were like 1,200 people on that Zoom. That's the biggest Zoom I've ever done, was your Zoom webinar on Saturdays. So congrats on doing all of that too, Quincy.
Well, thank you. You have to be, you know, adjusting to what's going on in the market, and, you know, people are hungry for knowledge, and, you know, we're there to provide that knowledge. It's a lot more fun to do it in person. I think we would all agree with that, but it is what it is, and this is the new reality. And there's a lot of benefits to what's going on now too, is how many of us before really knew how to set up Zoom meetings and stuff like that? And we're going to do a lot of changes and societal changes that I think are very exciting.
Yep, I agree. And what's your take on the economics of what we're going through? What do you think? You're one of the smartest people I know.
Oh, there's no question. When there's chaos, there's opportunities. I'm not sure I'm ready to jump on the opportunities just yet, but think of all the tired landlords and people who need to sell their house on seller financing or sell their notes that are created because there's no other way to do it. I mean, I think there's going to be opportunities galore. And you're just going to have to keep your eyes open to those opportunities.
And I think it's the hard part's going to be being patient, because I like to be busy, and I'm sort of a deal junkie, Quincy. So like for me to hit the pause button is difficult, but I do think the best deals are down the road a little bit.
I mean, this is the time when people are going to get wealthy, and they won't get wealthy by flipping, I don't think. I think this is where you acquire some long-term, good cash flow with low debt. That's in the mid 80s when I moved to Houston. That's when many people I know got very wealthy just by buying and holding.
Yep. So the key to that is going to be your network.
Of course, always.
So how do you build a network in your mind during shutdown?
Well, we're doing it right now. I mean, you're feeding your network, Jim, and you just have to go to the Zoom meetings and just don't forget that your network is still out there. You just got to get with them. I mean, I don't have any problem with my network right now.
Yeah, and John Morey said private money is going to be the key. That is a fact. I agree. And I think it's a good time to reach out to people you've done deals with over the last 12 to 36 months and let them know what your plans are. Like my plan would be, when the market resets here, I'm going to start buying and holding until it goes back up. So to do that, I need
I think
access
that's
to
a
a lot
good
of capital.
strategy.
It's so simple, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be selling, Quincy. So what am I going to do? I'm going to be buying and keeping, not selling. I flipped way too much during the last recession.
Yeah, you're going to be buying and keeping with advantageous financing.
Right. Yeah, conservatively leveraged. And I think it'll be a good market. You mentioned seller financing, but for options, seller financing for sure. And the deals are going to come. It's just like Beth and I were texting a minute ago. It's hard to be patient. Lori Eubank said, flipping is a job. I like this advice. It is. It's so many moving parts and a lot of work. So that's what I'm thinking I'm going to do is as the deals increase and the prices drop and foreclosures come back and people are selling, I'm not going to be selling. I'm going to be buying. So
from my perspective, every time there's been a major event like this, Quest has not lost customers, they've gained customers. It's a different type of customer that maybe there was there before, but we're gonna have an explosive growth in 2021, not necessarily 2020.
Mm-hmm. And I think we mentioned seller financing. I think options, Quincy, you are so smart with options. Don't you see that as a play as well?
Oh, absolutely. The options are the most underutilized technique out there, I think.
And I think there's going to be a lot of commercial opportunities potentially. I mean, think about all the office space that's going to be, nobody's going to want it. There's going to be retail space, hotels are in trouble. Apartment complexes have tenants going on strike. I mean, right? John Morey and I have both been highlighted on the evil landlords during coronavirus page. Have you guys seen that? It is a nasty group of people, and they don't like my rent's deuce shirt. They like to highlight that, but they don't want to pay rent, and they want to organize like a rent strike. It's crazy.
Yeah, and what I did is I reported them 3 or 4 times, and each time Facebook would come back and say, well, we don't see anything wrong. So I just decided to block them.
They are nasty people, aren't they, John?
You know, they're definitely not good people at all. I read their stuff over there. All they want to do is just create havoc. That's it.
Mhm.
You know, I keep running into this group, but their founder, if I got the person correct, was charged on terrorism. And that's kind of how he runs his group, isn't it, John?
Yes, sir. It's crazy.
So, so I think options are good. How do you see options potentially fitting into the mix over the next, say, 12 months, Quincy? What do you think?
Well, I mean, to the extent you have an option, you don't own the property, you have a right to buy the property. And as prices come back up, which they inevitably will, the more options you have on more different properties, the better. And it's not really hard to get an option on property. You just have to be adept at explaining what it is and what it is not. So, I mean, that's going to be very exciting as well.
So you get the right to buy, but you don't have the obligation to buy. And
Exactly.
that's a powerful position. That's a lot of leverage.
And there's different styles and ways of using options. We have, of course, an options class, which I don't know if it's online right now, but if it's not, we'll re-record it. And, you know, so options, you can be very creative. I think what the thing is, besides doing the basic stuff, that buy and hold, you're going to be able to do a lot of creative type transactions. And that is always so much fun.
So, and then along that lines, I think equity financing is going to come back into play. I think, don't you, Quincy? That's a much safer way to go through this period of time as well. You don't get like the whole deal, but you get chunks of deals, and you can get chunks of a lot of deals. And if you're not the type of person that's going to be greedy, then I think joint ventures and equity financing will be a good play. Do you agree?
Yes, as long as you draw your paperwork carefully. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the key to any joint venture, because if you don't draw it carefully, then you can get yourself into a quagmire. Like I'm going through a situation right now where my joint venture partner, actually we formed 2 LLCs, and they've been going through a divorce for the last 3 years, and it's just a cluster, you know what, but you know, so you've got to do your due diligence on your partners. I don't know that I could have ever foreseen anything like what's going on, but you know, it's due diligence is still going to be required. I mean, don't get so creative that you create yourself into a corner.
Good tip. And I think I agree with that. Wendy, what do you think about due diligence during this lockdown in general? I mean, first of all, you got due diligence of people. You can do that from your office a lot of times, but due diligence of property is a little more challenging, right? And so are inspection draws for a lender, I would assume.
Actually, you know, it's not. What I'm finding is, yeah, I agree with almost everything Quincy is saying, which is unusual.
Well, we'll have to discuss later what you don't agree with.
What would that be? So I think that buy and hold is absolutely, you know, a strong way to go right now, but fix and flip is not lost. It really depends on your market and, you know, what price range you're in. We've been doing a lot of Zoom calls, and I'm almost zoomed out. I'm sure a lot of people are kind of feeling that way too. I want to hug and touch people and,
Hey,
you know,
virtual
shake
high
hands.
fives, everybody.
Yeah,
Give a virtual.
I miss that.
Wendy, here's your virtual hug.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Don't you feel better already? Thank you.
I do.
Thank you.
I do. Listen, just hearing your voice makes a big difference. But I really believe that being in the right market makes all the difference. We changed and started doing lending mostly in what we call a bread and butter market. So, you know, for us in the Carolinas and the little states that touch the Carolinas, bread and butter market for us is where the after repaired value is $300,000 or less. Now, those are still selling. They're still closing. You know, a lot of the people's biggest concern is, what about my end buyer's lender? You know, what's the conventional lender doing right now? You're hearing like Chase, some of the bigger banks saying that they're putting a stop on a lot of things, and that they're not doing investor loans, that they're not they're not counting employment. There's a lot of things that they're doing. But Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and most of the smaller broker lenders are still doing loans. They're, you know, if they've been laid off for up to 6 months, they're still counting that as income. They're not making the changes that you see these bigger banks doing. And the bigger banks aren't the ones you need to be doing those loans with anyway for your end buyer. So the people that are buying those 300,000 and under houses are still qualifying for loans. In fact, the rates are the lowest they've ever been. And the refinances are up still and continuing to stay up. And I think we're going to see rates remain low. They're going to have to keep them low to keep the economy going. So I really believe that fix and flip is still a viable way to be making money. The key is new construction. I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole right now. I would. That's too long. It's just too long of a fix. For us, when we're lending money, we don't want the rehab to be any more than 50% of what the total loan amount is. We just want to keep the exposure short, and investors should be thinking the same way. You know, if you're in a property, you can be in and out in 3 months or less. That's a deal. You know, the last recession that we all got this wonderful opportunity to live through, it took 18 to 24 months for pricing to bottom out from the time it first happened until when things started changing around again. And I really believe we're going to see something similar. You're not going to see prices just drop overnight. It's going to take a little time for that to happen. Also, my crystal ball's broken, but what I think is that we're not going to see the huge decrease, not where we are, not in Virginia, maybe in some parts of Virginia, the closer you get to Washington, but not in the Carolinas, not in the Southeast. I don't see that happening. And you know, Texas has been really strong. We're those of us who didn't see the spike go up are not going to see a huge drop either. People are still moving to the Southeast. They're still moving to the South. We still have a shortage of housing. That's not going to change. And I really, people have been stuck in apartments for a long time. Those folks who've been working out of their home, you think they want to upgrade and get a house where they have room and their kids aren't running around driving them crazy? There's a lot of really positive things to look at with what we're experiencing right now. The other thing too, you talked about private lending. I've seen a lot of chats talking about private lending. Now is the time to find people that have self-directed IRAs to get financing set up. Those are the folks who are not going to want to be in the stock market anymore. They've got money sitting there that they are dying to get out there and make some interest on. And real estate is still the most solid investment you can make.
Wow. So Wendy, when I said we're going to keep this positive, man, you just took me up a couple notches.
Good.
I'm going to have to pull my finger off the pause button after talking to you.
I mean, how can you not be positive in this, Jim?
That's right.
You guys know I'm an eternal optimist. Those guys that really know me. I mean, I just, Michael Jake just shared a video. Michael, what sort of, oh, my son-in-law is calling me. It's his birthday, by the way, but he can go to voicemail. Michael, tell us about the video you saw on YouTube. Here he is. Oh, I can't hear you.
He sounds like Mickey Mouse.
I think he swallowed some helium. We cannot hear you. All right, everyone can check out that video. Everybody's saying, love it, Wendy. Yeah, bring it on. Mindset strong. Chipmunks.
Well, it's a great time to be in this business. I myself, you know, I'm a lender. I don't really buy houses, not often. But I buy, you know, one every 2 or 3 months. And I'm in Airbnbs. I love Airbnbs. So that's why I'm buying houses, fixing them up. I turn them into Airbnbs, which have stayed booked, by the way, for me, which I'm grateful for. However, I purchased 4 houses in the last 2 months, and I'm still moving full speed ahead. Now, when I'm doing my due diligence, because that was your original question,
Yeah,
when I'm doing my due diligence, see, I brought it all back around.
yeah,
I am, first off, taking 5% off of what I think the value is. I take it right off the top. Whatever I think that after repaired value is, I'm taking 5% off the top, because I am going to assume that the rates have already dropped, or that the pricing has already dropped that much. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm also going to make sure that I have overly inspected the property, because anybody who buys and sells properties, when you buy a property, you always find something you don't expect, right? So now I am getting inspections on a house when I normally wouldn't have done that. Excuse me, in the beginning. Where I normally wouldn't have done an inspection on a house that I'm buying, I'm doing that now. And I'm doing it because I really want to know as much as I possibly can. I don't want any surprises. I'm not in a position where I can have any right now. I want to make sure that I'm really honed in on what those repair costs are going to be. The other thing though, when I am calculating rent, if it's a buy and hold, when I'm calculating the rent, I'm not changing that, because I don't believe that we're going to see rent decrease. I think the opposite will occur. What do you think of that, Quincy?
I actually agree with that completely.
Good answer. I don't know if anybody else has an opinion
now,
on
what do you
that.
guys think will happen with rents? What do you guys think? So Wendy, your prediction is rents will keep going up,
Oh yeah,
because when you think about it, people don't necessarily want to be right on top of each other anymore.
that's
So if
right.
they go from a 2-bedroom
Well,
apartment to a 2 or 3 bedroom.
Kind of depends, Jim, on who the two parties are.
Well, of course.
I knew that was coming.
But I mean, I'll tell you, like, I bought a duplex earlier this month, and I put another duplex under contract yesterday. So, you know, I can't quite hit pause like I talk about, but I mean, I've already got somebody who wants to rent. So I don't think even renting apartments is going to be a problem. But I think if you're in an apartment complex with like 200 or 300 units, I could see those people wanting to go out. And I could see migratory, you know, like if you're in Queens right now, I could see people moving from Queens to either the suburbs or out in New York
Absolutely.
entirely. Couldn't you?
Yeah. I mean, when I think, I'm very grateful, excuse me, I'm very grateful I have a decent sized house, and not a mansion or anything like that, but I have a decent sized house. In the back of me is a huge football field size green belt. I have lakes to walk around, and, you know, I'm very happy being locked down in this area. And my daughter in Dallas, you know, she has this little apartment with this microscopic cemented area outside. So, you know, if I was in an apartment and you had the means to do it, I think I'd, after this experience, find being in a house to be much more enjoyable, shall we say.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I think I've come to appreciate my neighborhood more than ever. That's like one of the side benefits. If I told everybody to bring something you're grateful for, but I mean, Wendy, you've been to my house, but like we have, you didn't see this, Wendy, but down at the end of the street, there's like a neighborhood lake. And so every day, Cheryl and I are taking walks around the lake,
Wow.
and watching the birds. And Cutter and I have been sending, I don't know if Cutter's on. Let me look. No, he's not. But it's funny because Cutter and I, we're sharing what we're watching on TV, but also he started sending me pictures of birds, and I like text him back pictures of the deer in my yard. You know, so it's like you're enjoying things differently, and that's why I said at the beginning, you hear noise because we're putting a pool in our backyard, but it's time for a staycation this year. You know what I mean?
That's right.
I can't go anywhere anyways. I mean, I would love to travel, all of us, Quincy and Wendy, I know you guys, many on this Zoom love to travel. And we've had great times on cruises together and on islands, but right now we can't, though I might go see Ryan on his sailboat. That sounded pretty good.
You know, I think I think the other thing that we're going to see is that outdoor living space is going to be really important when you're selling a house. Even when you're doing the smaller bread and butter,
Yeah.
it would behoove you to put a little more money in an outdoor patio,
Or a duck. I agree.
some sort of outdoor living space. I know that during this time, I have literally been at Home Depot and Lowe's almost every day, some days up to 4 times a day. Those were the days I was not too happy about it. But it was amazing to me, and it still is, how busy those 2 stores have been since this occurred. In fact, I heard that in the first 30 days, they made the same amount of money that they made in the previous 8 months,
Oh
both
my
of those
God.
stores. So people have spent this time fixing up their outdoor living spaces. You talked about the nice lake at your house, in your neighborhood that you get. So, you know, are we going to see neighborhoods that have those kind of amenities do even better than they have been in the past? Is that going to be something that's going to attract people more? Those are things to think about.
Wendy, how are all your farm animals doing? Are you enjoying them?
Well, I do have 7 goats that are for sale. So if
Oh, don't
anybody's
tell
looking for
Cheryl
goats,
that.
I'm selling.
Cheryl will be down buying one. She's crazy.
I'm gonna send her pictures. So we've got a horse, we've got goats, we have chickens, we have cats, dogs, and then my 3 pigs are actually my kids that live there. So I wouldn't let them in the house if I could get away with it, but but you kind of have to, you know,
And
keep the
Sharon
humans under
Williams said they
shelter.
have sheep and chickens too. And
Yeah.
Mike says he loves that goat cheese. All right.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's I'll tell you what, I've always appreciated living out there, but I appreciate it even more going through all of this, because I have not felt confined or quarantined in any way, shape, or form because of it. So
Good point.
great way to go. But thank you for asking.
So Wendy, the people that are flipping in the Charlotte area that you're working with, it was a good tip on the outdoor space. Is there anything else like flippers should be considering right now? Other
You
than
know,
just being careful on price?
well, yeah, you always want to be you need to stay focused. You need to stay focused on what we know is selling. And we had, this past Friday on our Sunrisers meeting, we had a mortgage guy and a real estate guy that's been around for a really long time. And we pulled up statistics, not just locally, but what's happening in the US, across the US. And one of the things that we're seeing is that real estate has not slowed down. It usually picks up in March and April anyway during the year. And of course, we didn't have we're down from last year, but it hasn't tanked. And what they're seeing is a lot of sales have really started picking up. They opened up our area to be able to show houses and things like that about 2 weeks ago. But even during that time when they couldn't show houses, vacant properties that were on the market are selling like crazy. And what's important for people to know is what's going to set your house apart from everyone else's are the little things, the little touches that catch people's eyes when they walk in. You know, changing a light fixture to update it just to look like it was designed in this century makes a big difference. Even just taking the light switches and making sure that you get rid of the ivory light switch with the white cover on it. Change those little things out. Hinges, the door handles on the kitchen cabinets. They're inexpensive wow factors that make a big difference. And if you ever are in a house where you can put a backsplash in the kitchen, a backsplash makes all the difference in the world, rather than just having it blank. So it's those little things that don't cost you a lot of money that will make people buy it quicker. It may not raise the value of the house or the price of the house, but it'll make them choose your house over someone else's. Even, you know, inside a closet, make sure you have some shelving in there. I've seen so many people try to sell houses without refrigerators. That's a big plus. Without refrigerators, without stoves, without mirrors over the sinks, without any inserts in the closets. And those are going to make people just not take advantage of that first. They're going to pick the ones that have that kind of thing first.
And see, I think it was Mike in the Triangle area. You just sold a flip today, and you had like 30 showings. Unmute yourself.
Wow.
Tell us how you
Awesome.
did that.
I did. Yeah, I have the flip I have going on in it's a part North Raleigh is pretty, you know, it's a hot part of town now. The asking price was $235, so like Wendy said, it's still in that sub $300,000 price point. When I was speaking with the agent, she said, well, showings are down. You know, I think we should go with 229. And when I looked at it and I really dug into the data, you know, the 235 price point's about $157 a square foot, although the comps were really at about 152, 153. But since the former owner who really wanted, he didn't want anybody intruding into his house. He wanted to keep things simple. But what he did was, even though he upgraded everything in the house with granite, he did a luxury bathroom with tub and then luxury shower. He made every room a different color.
Yeah.
And that kind of just didn't work, but he had a lot of upgrades in there. So, I mean, I only spent $8,000 in the house, but I mean, there was 50 showings and we had 18 offers. And the offer that I accepted was cash and it's closing tomorrow. And I just put it on the market this month.
Holy
So,
cow.
I mean,
that's
that
a
was
fast
definitely
closing.
not
Praise God.
to be expected.
That's what you call
but, you know, I think it goes back to,
take it to.
yeah. And I think it goes back to, yeah.
Wow.
You know, and there's I got another couple that are on, but I think, you know, that whole sub 250 or $300,000 price point, and if worst came to worst, and I couldn't sell these properties, I mean, I could rent them, and I am working with local lenders who are loaning from their IRA, and if there was a problem, you know, I could start paying them maybe, let's say, you know,
Sure. That's
interest
the way to
only
go. It
per
all
month.
comes back to that self-directed IRA.
That's
It's
exactly
not
right.
banked, it's
And-
not
and
banked
I-
in.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's exactly right about the self-directed IRAs. If there's anything that anybody on here can learn today, you need to make sure that you are signed up with Quest so that you can get the emails when they're doing these webinars and training sessions, because your best finance option is to understand these self-directed IRAs so that you can teach others about it. It's because there's so many people that have money that have no idea what a self-directed IRA is or how they can work, or they may have one and they just don't know how to lend money. They don't understand how it works. You have to teach them, because it's the perfect option out there for anyone, whether you have 30,000, 130,000, or 300,000 to be able to lend. It's such a great option. And the other thing people need to remember is, if someone just has 30,000, find another person that has 60,000 and put them together on the same loan in a shared first position piece. There's so many different ways that you can make this work. That you just have to understand how they work, because the more knowledge you have that you can share with your lender, the more they're going to lend you money and the more they're going to trust you and be comfortable with what they're doing.
Great tips, right, everybody? So Quincy, what do you think about self-directed IRAs?
I like them, actually. Yeah, I mean, she's right. You know, the flexibility. I'm funding I've been doing hard money lending, or I call it soft hard money lending, for 20 years out of my self-directed IRA. And it's just a great source. You need to find a partner like myself, I'm too busy to find the deals and do the deals, but I've got the money to lend. And that's who you're looking for. You need to bring people in, and don't assume just because a person doesn't have a lot of money that they don't have access to a lot of money. I remember one time that one of our clients stood up and, to give a little testimonial. I knew he had a small account, and he said, "My family's got over $1 million here at Quest." And I was like, wow, that's, you don't know where those fingers go. So anybody that you can help to invest, I mean, some people are going to take advantage of the stock market, of course, but some people are going to be so nervous about the extreme volatility of the stock market that they're going to be looking for alternatives that are safe and sound. And that's where self-directed IRAs can come in. And there's almost an unlimited amount of funds out there to fund your transaction.
And there's a lot of people on Zoom today that I know lend. There's a lot of part-time lenders, and that's really a nice position to be in, where it really is a part-time gig anyways, because once your funding goes out there, you don't really do anything but your account collects money once a month, and then later you got to do a payoff. So like, I guess everybody's sort of part-time, but I'm looking through the names that are on here, and I know you guys, a lot of you guys are lending part-time. I guess Quincy and Wendy, do you have any tips in case somebody's worried about lending during this pandemic, and what some of the things you should watch out for? I want to talk about blind spots today too, guys. So I guess like lending blind spots. If you're a borrower or a lender, what are some things you should be doing right now?
Well, for me, when this whole thing hit, we didn't stop lending, but we slowed down because we knew we had to change what our guidelines were going to be. So when we're lending now 65% of the after repaired value. We're lending 90% of the purchase price and 100% of the rehab amount. We're also requiring that people bring at least 3 months worth of interest to the table. So what we've done is we've reduced our exposure so that we're hedging against the possibility of property values dropping and people just not having the funds to make the payment. So what that did is it really thinned out the herd of who we were lending to. So if I were a person that's lending part-time, my own IRA, and I do that as well, I would really reduce my loan to value for what I'm lending. If I'm just lending on a part-time basis, I do this professionally, so I can lend, I'm a little more comfortable in the due diligence that I do, but I probably wouldn't lend any more than 50 or 60% of the value of the property. And I would get the after repaired value, and I would get a real current appraisal on something like that. I would also make sure that my term on lending, if it's a fix and flip, I would make sure it's short. It needs to be 6 to 8 months. In fact, I would probably make it shorter than that. If I had 70 grand and I'm going to lend it to somebody, I would probably try to keep it at 6 months or less at maybe 50% loan to value. So what that does is it's making sure that the borrower is really in it. They're bringing money to the table, so they're serious, they're liquid, and they know they're going to get in and out of that house pretty quick. Like Leah Coleman just put on here that she's looking for $60,000 for 50% LTV with 8% interest plus 10% of the cash flow. Now, what she's asking for is a little bit more long term, but you're sitting at 50% LTV, and being able to take on the profits is good too. Now, I'd like to see where it is. Is it a resort house? Is it something that where workers for a power plant can come, or the nurses are staying? Is it long term? Just to kind of gauge what kind of income's going to come off of something like that. But I mean, that's a good investment for somebody who wants to earn money off of their self-directed IRA. So I'd just be a little more cautious from what people were doing previously, I would be a little more cautious on what I'm lending out and who I'm lending to. You need to know who you're getting into bed with. You need to, character is everything. Character, I shouldn't put it that way, I guess, but
Yeah,
character.
maybe that's not the best way to put it.
But if you're going to talk about character, take it away, because you're preaching my language now.
Okay, character is everything. I mean, even, you know, we're a pretty decent sized company, and even the people that we lend to, we care about their character. We don't pull a background check because we want to see if they've been arrested. We want to see everything that they've done in their life in their past. I mean, we're really wanting to look at that. We're also wanting to get referrals from other people that have done business from them previously. We want to know that when the going gets tough, are they going to go dark on us? You know, is this a person that when it comes to the same thing with a partnership, we talked about doing partnerships with people earlier. When it comes down to money, people's character changes drastically. And you need to see how grounded they are in their life. What's important to them? You know, are they family people? You know, for me, you know, if they're believers, that's a plus, but it doesn't always say who they are.
People like to throw that card around. I like to throw that card around.
Yeah. That's exactly right. In fact, there are times when, you know, if somebody hands me a business card and I'm seeing the little Christian fish on it, my first response is, uh-oh, I got to watch this.
Yeah, me too.
You know, because you just don't know. So asking around is really important. You know, being plugged into a group like this really, really is handing you a huge tool bag, because there's people here that know other people who have done business with who you're getting ready to do business with. And you've got an opportunity here where people can say, hey, I'm trying to do a loan with John Smith. Anybody out there do business with them in the past? And I ask
People
around
call
all the
me
time.
Quite often. They probably call you as well, Wendy.
Absolutely. And I will not hold back. I'll tell what I know. I'm not going to go spew stuff just, you know, for no reason, but what I know, I'm going to share. And I hope people would do the same for me.
You know, I think it was last night, David Tilney made a comment that one of the things he looks for is stability in character. And he mentioned about being people that are married a certain length of time. David, could you unmute real quick? Tell me again what your thought process, because it comes into the lending realm as well. If you're able to.
Well, I mean, I think what you're saying, both of you are saying, is absolutely right. Your character does matter. And so I just pointed out that when I'm looking at doing business with someone, if they've been married to the same person for 30 years, that tells me a lot. That tells me a real lot. And that's something I look for.
Okay, I agree. Thank you. And while I'm thinking of David, I just typed in there, if anybody's having trouble collecting rent or has pretty serious tenant issues, David is a great resource. He's the one who got me on the right track to being a good landlord. So it's nice to have him along. There's actually a lot of great investors on here. Quincy, what do you think about due diligence of people? I know, like a deal maker, Mary Hart really pushed due diligence hard. She talked about due diligence of the property, and then double checking your numbers, and then triple checking and checking them 4 times, and then doing social media checks on the people, and, you know, credit checks. I mean, how important is that?
Well, I mean, it's, you know, it goes without saying, you got to do your due diligence on the property and on the repairs, if any are being made. That's, you know, not too hard to figure out how to do. But the character of the person you're dealing with is just the number one thing. I mean, Wendy couldn't have said it better than what she did, or certainly I can't say it better than what Wendy did. You know, I've had some experiences that were a surprise to me, you know, because I thought I knew a person and didn't turn out the way I expected. And so due diligence on the person is critical. And, you know, I will say this, you know, don't just substitute being in the same group for due diligence. What I mean by that is, obviously people can be in a group and fool you, but they can't fool everybody for very long. So checking them out is a critical thing for the group, but don't just assume just because somebody's in a particular group that means that you don't need to do due diligence. And I think that's one lesson I've learned about that.
Okay. All right, good stuff. Do you guys have any questions regarding doing the right deals and financing them? Follow-up questions, you can unmute yourself, type it in the chat box. Also, is anybody having trouble with tenants? BG said 2 out of 64, that's pretty good. You're in good shape there, BG, it looks like. So, everyone, April we thought was going to be a reasonably tough month to collect. I had one tenant who tested positive for COVID, and both he and his wife lost their jobs. But they've both paid April and they've both paid May. They're on unemployment now and doing fine. We thought maybe May was going to be like this big struggle, but for me personally, it's been fine. But if somebody's got like a serious issue with the tenant right now, just let us know. We've talked a little bit about doing the right deals. We've talked a little bit about creative financing. Michael Jake, is your mic working now, by the way? Looks like everyone's rents are coming in really good, which is wonderful. Do you guys have any particular questions? We got this, the collective group here is really strong. There are people a lot smarter than me on this Zoom today and a lot more experienced than I am. So if you've got a challenge, or if you're worried, if you have some fear, this is a good place to sort of get over all of that stuff. It looks like everyone's rents are really coming in good, Wendy, which is wonderful.
It is. I'm glad to see that. And here's what's funny. You're hearing on the news, and everybody that's gloom and doom, oh, nobody's getting their rent. All of these Airbnb owners are over leveraged, and now they're going to crash the economy because they can't pay their Airbnb rent. There's, the rent strike, people wanting to go on rent strikes, all these crazy things going on. But if you'll talk to the majority of people who are in this business and have been in this business, you'll find that they're getting their rents. And if they're not getting their rents, their tenants haven't gone dark. They've talked about a payment plan of how it's going to work. They're doing reduced rents. They might even be foregoing rent for a month or two, allowing them the opportunity to not pay rent and then pay it up, within the next 12 months. The communication has been terrific. From what I'm seeing for landlords that I've been talking to, and the same thing for lenders. As a lender, we've got, 185 loans. We've had 7 people that have requested a hardship and asked that we allow it to, they've got 2 of them have houses under contract that are closing this month and just asked us to allow that payment to be made at the end of the month or at the closing table. One of those, in addition, one of those 7 is a chronically late person all the time anyway. So I wasn't surprised to get a hardship letter from that person. And the rest are legitimate, they're estheticians or they're real estate agents that haven't been able to sell any houses for a while. But it's all been worked out for a deferment plan or a forbearance is another word that people are using on this. But it's the communication, I think, that has made all the difference in the world. That people have reached out and talked about it.
Right, David?
That is 100%. Wendy, you must be smart or something, because I keep agreeing with you.
Yeah, me too.
I always tell my borrowers, and I don't have tenants right at the moment, but I always tell my borrowers that communication is key. You don't want to have a situation like in the, wonderful movie with Cool Hand Luke. I don't know if you've all ever seen that. what we've got here is failure to communicate.
That's right. See, I look at that as Jackie Gleason's line.
I like it. I like it. I could see your wife saying that to you, Quincy, definitely, you know. She'll keep you in line. I know Cheryl does the same to me.
Absolutely.
That's what our spouses are
But
for.
communication is key, and I mean, I had one of my longstanding borrowers, which I actually seller finance the property to. He's in the dog kennel business, and you know, there's nobody going anywhere, so there's nobody boarding their dogs. And he was like, "What can we do?" And he's been paying his mortgage on time, and I said, okay, well, I'll tell you what, I'll let you pay interest only on the mortgage for the next 3 months till things get back to work. So, and he's a good guy. I have no problem doing that because he's been a good, solid payer over the last 5 years.
Excellent. So I've had a few handful of comments either sent to me privately or publicly in the chat box about notes. Dave Fernecki, could you unmute yourself real quick? I mean, this is like the who's who of real estate. I'm telling you, there's great people on here. Dave, what's going on in the
Tim,
notes?
how are you? Can you hear
Hey,
me?
Dave.
Hey, Quincy, how are you?
Good.
What's going on in the note space these days?
Inventory is tougher to find, but the expectations are really looking good. Oak Creek Capital, I saw, is looking to raise $15 billion to buy NPNs.
Billion with a B?
With a B.
Wow.
With a B. And just in the last few days, I've had 3 people ping the Capstone site looking for pools of NPNs, so they see expectations there. I'm just looking to see what other people are seeing in terms of one-offs, people that might have taken back paper, they're not getting paid their motivation to maybe sell down the road. If there's anybody that can share their thoughts, Quincy, maybe.
Levi, you can unmute yourself. Tell us what you're seeing. I know Levi's on here, and there's other note investors, so just unmute yourself if you're a note investor. Go ahead, Levi.
Hey, everyone. We're seeing some people want to get out of owner finance. That's who's been reaching out to us most recently. Flippers, wholesalers that ended up owner financing something. We've seen some stuff drop, I don't know, about 10% compared to what it was selling for, but I think it'll come down quite a bit more in the next 8 months or so. So I'm struggling just to be patient and wait for it because I don't want to buy too much and stuff drop.
Quincy, what are you seeing? Because you see a lot from your perspective. You're at the 10,000-foot view as far as note investors and what they're seeing or what their expectations are. Well,
Truthfully, at this point, I'm not so plugged into the day-to-day activities because, my situation is preventing me from working full time. So I don't know how to answer that question, Dave. I hate to kind of admit that, but that's the reality of the situation.
Okay. I talked to a flipper in Texas today, and he's more of a buy and hold seller carry. So he owns like 55 notes that he's created, and he's looking to hypothecate, meaning to use as collateral. So I said, I don't think I want to go there, not at 5 points, but I said I would do partials. He said, like a 15-year, and I said, yeah. He said, what kind of interest? I said, 10, 11, 12, I don't know, whatever. What are your thoughts on that, Quincy, in terms of safety for the Texas area? Because he's seeing no drop where he is in activity. He's even busier than he was. But what are your thoughts on that perspective?
Well, I mean, I think Texas is it's just like anything else. Everything is local, so you've got to figure out what you're comfortable with and go with that. I mean, I don't really have a comment on that at this point.
Hey, Levi, what about you?
I would stay out of the small towns. It depends where he's located in relations to them. If it's outside of San Antonio, Austin, Houston, Dallas, you're probably pretty good with that. Lubbock, you're probably pretty good with that. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Is that helpful, Dave?
Yeah, it is. Very. It's just, it's like you, Jim. It's like I want to go, but I don't want to get caught short. And I want to buy, but I want to make sure that the value, that the analytics are going to be there in a year. So it's kind of like I'm being held back. And I'm sure it's no different than the house business.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody said earlier in the chat they wanted. I think it was you, Lori. You said people are still having trouble finding good deals. Was that you? Go ahead, unmute yourself. Say hello to everybody. You got so many friends on here, Lori. You're like a rock star.
Thank you, thank you. Y'all might hear my baby in the background, but
I like that. That's
so
okay.
excited to share that I think I put together a wholesale deal today between another investor and an end buyer. Really just having the conversations that people locally are having a hard time, and they're like, any deal you have, let me know. So I thought I might slow down, but if I can connect the two and make money wholesaling, that's a really good option.
I think it's a great position to be in, Lori.
Yeah,
If
thank
you're
you.
able to
I'm
wholesale.
pretty excited about it.
Ryan's done that from his sailboat all over the world.
That's right.
Now, I think that's a very safe position to be in if you can deliver deals. And right now, I think investors are still paying a little too much personally.
Yeah.
So if you could be on the receiving side of them paying a little bit too much as we hit the tippy top of the market, that's not a bad place to go.
I'm very excited because this deal comes with a renter. They are retired, and so they're getting Social Security anyways. So it's cash flowing, and then it has equity. All in at 70,000 is apparently really hard to find right now in Richmond. So
Why aren't you buying it?
I know. Well, that's the thing. I want to buy it, but everyone tells me if you can make 10 grand, not do anything, just do it. I'm very conflicted. This is really hard for me to do. What should I do, Quincy?
I
Maybe
think
do
you
a
should
joint
do
venture
whatever
with Quincy.
you want to do. I mean, 70,000 with a tenant in place sounds very tempting. I would have to agree
I
with
know.
you.
It is.
That's
So
a good deal for equity financing.
Well, that's true. Do you do much equity financing, Lori?
I don't. In fact, I think I might have done it by accident a few years ago, but no, I have not.
You know where this deal would be good for both of you is inside of Lori's Roth IRA.
Oh, I like that.
In my opinion, or your HSA.
The renter's paying $900.
It's a pretty good deal.
They've been there 17 years.
That's how deals get done. You guys are watching.
Okay, wait a minute. Well, we need to get something going here, huh?
Yeah.
Lori, I'll be on the phone with you as soon as we get off here.
Lori's the
Okay,
deal
my
maker.
phone's on charge.
I'm next in line, Quincy.
Oh, hey, I got some.
I smell a deal.
I'm about 3 weeks from having funds available. If somebody needs a little something here pretty soon in June, I'm just saying, don't forget about me.
Yeah. Here, Jim. First.
Okay, I want to borrow some.
Well, I'll lend to you any day, Wendy. That's no problem. See, that's how deals get done, guys. It's all about your network and not being afraid to bring a deal to the table or ask for help. Somebody said, what did deals look like? I don't remember who it was. It was Chris. He said, can we discuss an example of an actual deal that's been contracted as a buyer or a seller since the crisis began? I mean, I bought a duplex since this began. I've already closed on it. I've got another duplex under contract, Chris. And then I've also bought and sold a flip during this time. What I meant was I bought it during the crisis. I've already completed the rehab and I sold it last week.
Wow.
It was a really good flip. It was like, a 30-day job. So I guess, Chris, if you're, or somebody else has got something you're willing to share. Lori, have you done any recently?
Sorry, I had to unmute. Yeah, we have a couple of projects right now. I have a friend that's actually, we're working together to knock out some rehabs. So I'm hearing that people are getting multiple offers on flips.
Yeah,
And we're
I am.
seeing, yeah, it's really encouraging to get them out as fast as you can. So we're listing one this week, we're listing one next week, and then we have a couple that will be listed in the next month. So we're kind of riding the end of these flips. And we're jumping on new ones as long, like we have a new deal that we're buying and it only needs 20 grand of work, nothing from the city. I mean, it's pretty much new windows and some paint and throwing it back on the market, you know, in Churchill. It's a very desired area. So we're still picking up deals as long as they're like really easy, fast deals. We don't have any fear. Plus, you know, I've been the backup buyer a lot of times throughout the year. And so now that all these deals are falling apart, they're calling me. And then now I have investors calling me for deals. It's like, well, I'd be crazy not to work all this. So I feel like I'm going full force, but I'm changing up how I'm buying.
Love it. Hopefully that helps. Laura, you truly are a deal maker and a connector. I love it. So I just put that in there. Love
I
it.
appreciate you.
Y'all.
You know, Jim, you had somebody that asked a question. I believe Jacob was in his name.
Okay.
And he asked a question about burned out landlords, or maybe it was she, I don't know.
Yeah.
Asked about burned out landlords and you know, are they a deal? How you know, what kind of a script are you going to use for a burned out landlord?
I think that's probably the number one motivated seller right now.
Absolutely. And here's what I want to make sure people understand. The burned out landlords aren't tired of getting money in. They're tired of dealing with tenants. So their goal is they'd still like to get the money. Do they need it all at once? No, they don't need it all at once. Burned out landlords are your perfect seller finance opportunity. It can't get any better than that. And the way that you would approach them is, you know, you need to really find out what they want the money for. A lot of times a burned out landlord just wants to get rid of the tenants, and they may take a lower down payment. You know, maybe they're selling a package of houses that they're selling for, let's say, $300,000. Maybe they'll take $30,000 as the down payment, you know, and then you just take over the mortgage, set it up with the balloon payment at the end of 3 to 5 years so that they can see a light at the end of the tunnel, getting that money in, but they're not having to pay taxes on all that income right off the bat. They're not having to worry about paying yearly taxes on the properties, worried about insurance on the properties. All they're doing is collecting an income. And so they've got no stress, they have no expenses, and they're getting income off of it. What could be a better opportunity for the seller? And it's a great opportunity for you. We have negotiated, when I say we, I'm talking about me and a partner of mine that have been buying properties. We're negotiating right now a 40 property package at 0% interest. Yay! And we're going back and forth on it. They have not questioned the 0% interest, not one time.
Holy mackerel.
So, and you know what? If you don't ask, what's the answer? It's always no, right?
That is powerful, Wendy, and I'm so glad you said it.
You have to ask. You can't be afraid of what the answer is. Two things that you have to know is you can't be afraid to ask, and you have to understand what the seller's motive is. What is their pain point? So many times we're trying to come up with our own deals of what works for us. We need to find out what works for them. What's going to work for that seller?
Don't ever put yourself in the mind of the other person.
Well said.
I've seen that mistake from a lot of new investors. They say, well, I'm pretty sure my lender, just as an example, my lender, I'm pretty sure they need 12% and 2 points. How do you know?
That's right.
You ask them what they need. Same concept. Good comment, Wendy.
Well, and the other thing too is if you have a seller that's burned out, landlord that's burned out, and let's say they still owe some mortgages on this property, and they're willing to seller finance some. So use another self-directed IRA lender to do the mortgage payoff and ask your seller to take second position. What's the worst thing that could happen in that case? They're in a good position if they have already owned the properties. They've already gotten some sort of a down payment. There's a lot of people who are willing to go into that second position, putting your IRA person in first position.
So what do you guys think of that? Tell us in your, Daryl Parker's, Dave said partials are great to do. What do you guys think of that idea about doing seller financing in today's environment? I think it's a great idea.
I think the opportunities will be even better 3 months from now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you guys on that. That's a great point.
So Jim, tomorrow, or yeah, it is tomorrow morning. Tomorrow is Friday. Boy, the
Yes.
weekdays have just been flying by. Tomorrow morning on our Sunrisers meeting at 7:30 a.m., Eddie Speed is going to be on talking. And he's going to talk about his seller financing program that he's been preaching for about a year now. So now he's really in a good position to talk about that. And it's going to be good meat. It's not a sell-a-thon. He's going to be really talking about some good meat. So if you haven't heard Eddie Speed talk, folks, it's just, you know, he's a world of information for sure.
I really like Eddie a lot, and he's kept his character really strong for, you know, decades. But if somebody wants to join in on Sunrisers, which I love, I mean, what's the best way to get that Zoom link?
Well, I will copy and paste it and put it in here for you.
All right, great.
And then there's people that are saying they'd like to speak with me. The best way to reach me is Wendy at carolinahardmoney.com. I can also add you to my email list if you wanted, and if you don't get emails of junk, it's just a reminder of when the Sunrisers meeting is. That's all we do. We're not killing anybody on this.
I love that. Now, there are so many Zooms. Like last night I was on yours, Michael Jake, and with David Tilney and guys, and I really enjoyed it. All these Zooms are creating new ways to connect with people.
Right.
Exactly.
Now, we got to do virtual high fives. We can't give Wendy a great big hug today, but but you know what I mean. And John Morey can still do his salsa and, you know, so on. So it's a lot of fun. John Heyer had one last night too, which is awesome. So who's got a question, a problem? I want to talk about opportunities, challenges, and blind spots. I guess, Wendy, if you went back and you looked at what happened during the last recession, you too, Quincy, and whoever else, and then seeing what could potentially come down the road, what are some blind spots to be aware of?
They're everywhere.
Aaron, because if this is your first rodeo, it's your first recession coming up. You know, I think like access to capital is important, not being over leveraged. I just did a really good podcast on leverage with George Antone. Did you guys hear that one? I know some of you guys have. And, you know, leverage is a two-edged sword. It's sharp.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so like, I love leverage because it allowed me to go from nothing to something. Really, it comes down to leverage. And Quincy, you talk about leveraging talents and leveraging other people's deals and leveraging other people's mortgages and leveraging other people's money. But if you do leverage wrong, you can lose everything. But if you do it right, you can gain everything.
Think of in the 2008 and forward recession, think of what happened. Rents went down to the point where they were not supporting the mortgages. And that's where you get into trouble, is you overload it, assuming a certain set of circumstances. I mean, who could have predicted the pandemic? Well, apparently a lot of experts, but not the average real estate investor is going to not predict something this crazy that comes down every 100 years or so. And so over leverage is always a problem. Leverage is good, but over leverage is a problem. That's why I like, Jim, your idea of equity financing. I think you need to have a mix of regular loans, whether that be seller financing or regular mortgage company type loans, but also equity financing, because that can help you survive the any circumstances that come up like this.
I agree. So Wendy, what do you think about equity financing? I actually talked about it during my podcast a little bit with George last week. And, typically people think of leverage with banks, but, you got to be careful.
Well, I think you have to leverage. I think it's foolish not to. However, I don't like being in a deal any more than 60 maybe %, 70% is
Hard to find
tops.
deals like that to get into, though.
I'm sorry.
It's hard to find deals that deep to get into.
It is, but it's getting easier. It's getting a whole lot easier to do that.
Or people can bring money to closing. That's the other way to get there.
It's true. And one of the things that I think people need to understand, everybody wants to grow big really quick.
Oh.
And steady plotting is really, really important.
Wow,
If
100%.
you don't have a good foundation in the beginning, you're not going to make it. There are a lot of people who just got into investing in the last 6 months and are already out of business because of what just happened. There's a lot of people who have been in business for years, but they've over leveraged their properties. They're at 80% or higher on their properties, and they're barely making a cash flow when you take the mortgage payment that they're having to make, taxes and insurance. You keep it vacant for a few months, and now where are you? You have no money. You have no liquidity to fall back on. Being over leveraged is a huge mistake. But figuring out where that balance is really important. It depends on what market you're in, how much liquid cash you have. But, for me being, 70 or under, 60 and under, that's where I'm feeling a little more comfortable.
Okay. I think that's a great tip on being careful of scaling right now. That's a blind spot that I think nobody's really talking about. But I think it's a good time to cut all your expenses, get rid of all the little Pac-Man fees on your credit card, like monthly subscriptions and stuff you don't really need, and build your cash reserves as quick as you can.
As a company, back in January, we're members of Freedom Founders, which is, a great group that we're so blessed to be a part of. Quincy's in that as well, and I'm sure there's some other people here. So we did a stress test in January. This was before we knew any of this was coming. And we were given the mission to think about, if you woke up in the morning and the headlines say, you've lost 50% of your business or the economy's down by 50%, what would you do? So we had to sit there and really think about what would we do? Who's the first person we'd let go? Who's the last person we'd let go? How can we reduce our expenses? Those are all things. Now, we had done that the January previous anyway, but it really showed us where we had holes. We actually had a meeting and were able to reduce our marketing little things by $16,000. $16,000 of $9.99 Amazon account. Pandora, all these little $4.99 here, $9.99 here, $20.99. That just hits your credit card every month and you don't even realize it. Right. All the little things that you think you need or you forget you even have, when you go through all of that, you'd be surprised at what you can cut. I have not had cable in my house since 2003. It's the best thing that ever happened to us. My kids, they didn't get to watch the Disney Channel and all that cool stuff, but they did get a lot of Andy Griffith.
Golly.
There's a lot of things you can do instead of watch TV. That cable, when you think about what you spend on cable, my goodness, it's insane.
Yep. I was talking to somebody last week, Lori, that told me their cable bill is over $200 a month. It's a lot. I mean, just think if you were to buy $200 worth of books, what would happen, right?
That's right. You can go to the library for free. In fact, our library's online.
Yep. So, John, you mentioned Profit First as well. It really is. It is a good book. I mean, it made an impact on you. And Mike's got a new book out. I've been reading it. I'm about halfway through his new book. It's called Fix This Next.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's the book I'm reading. You guys wonder what books I'm reading.
I just,
You know,
just got that one.
you're right. You know, Profit First, really, I wish I knew about this the first time I got into it. I
Yeah,
would have been in a much better position today. Profit First is really good.
I agree. And it can be a scary thing to think about going through your bank statements and your credit card statements. But just like Wendy said, when I did it last fall myself, I found stuff like that I was paying for on internet fees and things like through just domains and web video hosting, just stuff I found that I didn't even know I was paying for every month. So I think it's very eye-opening. John, have you done that yourself?
Yes. The biggest thing for me is when I did Profit First is I did look at my accounting and everything, and I started trimming out some of this fat, things that I don't even need, that doesn't help me with my business. So now I'm seeing better money staying into my account. And yes, I'm doing the Profit First format, and it's really changed the way I look at things.
And Paul is questioning because I'm paying my Zoom here, but I think this Zoom is a great value. Personally, I've had to upgrade my Zoom to do this. I've had Zoom for like 5 years because I do podcasts on Zoom, but I had to upgrade my capacity to do these every 2 weeks. But I think that's a good value add because it contributes to other people. So I'm willing to do it. It's a great point. Okay. Anyone else have any questions on a deal you're working on? I mean, we've talked about being a landlord. We've talked about investing in notes. We've talked a lot about flipping. We've talked about rentals. We've talked a lot about private lending. Those 5 things are big. And, you're talking about it with people that are really doing deals and that are really in the trenches. That's what I like, besides getting to be able to hang out with people like Ron Biggs and Thomas Covington and a whole lot of other friends. But tell us, what's going on. Al Cook is on here. I didn't know. Carly, good to see you as well. I'm scrolling through. Brian Rhodes, if you could unmute real quick if you're on. I would love to say a quick hello to you.
Jim, I'm going to have to, I hate to do this, but I got to go. I'm going to be on another call at 1.
Go get them.
So
Thank you,
I'm
Wendy.
sorry.
That was a huge give today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And guy, did you put your sunrisers in there, Wendy?
I did. My sunrisers is in there.
You guys can save the chat by clicking the 3 little dots in the bottom right. That'll allow you to save it and you go back and get all those links and connect with people. But Brian, what do you think about the market right now? You and I both went through the last recession together. Both of us, it was our first one. First of all, what do you think's coming down the road? And then how should people prepare right now?
Well, thanks for doing these calls, Jim. These are helpful, I think, for the whole group. I think, Quincy and Wendy had some really good points. I'm pessimistic in the short term and optimistic in the long term about what we're going to see. I think that most people haven't realized what the effects are that we're going to go through. And that's going to take 6 months to a year before we see the full effects of what this is going to do to the economy and the real estate market. I think once that goes through the system, then I think we're going to see great opportunities. And that's residential, commercial, lending opportunities. Small businesses are going to need cash. I just think it's going to be amazing, the stuff that we'll see if we remain patient. And that's always hard. I heard Eli make the comment. I think, we feel the same way. We want to be able to take advantage today, but the great opportunities we see haven't happened yet, in my opinion.
Okay. So what are when you think back about going through your first recession, I mean, what do you wish you had sort of been better prepared for, that someone right now may be thinking about, what they should be thinking about, those blind spots? They don't know what are really coming.
One thing is exactly what you preach all the time. It's your network, because you need to have good, trusted people around you that have experience to give you guidance, but also the access to capital. And one thing that I think you and us went through at the same time was we were seeing amazing deals, and eventually everybody runs out of money. except for the Fed somehow with this infinite balance sheet, which I'd never heard about.
Infinite balance sheet. That is a mind-blowing concept.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to get one of those. I haven't found that yet, but yeah, having access to capital is huge, and I believe lending will slow down, much like it did in 2008. And it didn't really even matter what your net worth was, how long you'd been with banks, and we saw the community banks in our area just slash what they were willing to lend and even cut back on lines of credit that were existing as they get more nervous. And again, that presents opportunity to buy, but you have to have access to that capital.
And where's the best place for that? I think I know the answer to that.
Where would that be, Quincy?
Well, I think it's Quest IRA, probably. Quest Trust Company, sorry. The thing is that I think you're right, Brian, in a certain sense, but I think I'd like to point out here that if you wait till you need your network, well, you always need it, but if you wait till you need your network, it's not going to be there for you. You need to participate on these things. You need to build your network, and building your network is not just handing somebody a business card. It's communicating and being there for them, and just you can't. It takes a while to build a network, but then you also have to nurture that network. You know what I mean? It's like a baby. It needs to grow up with you and feel comfortable with you, and so work on your network, but also nurture your network.
I like that. I think you should reach out to people that you legitimately care about. And you don't have to talk about real estate or deals. Just ask them how they're doing, how their family is doing, and provide value back to your network, guys. Don't always just take from your network, but find ways to add value, I think is really important. So Brian, you're thinking the best deals, what did you say, 6 months to a year down the road?
I think so. I mean, one thing that we've talked about locally is the retail market, the fix and flip market is incredibly hot right now to sell. We've had 6 or 7 houses come on the market in the last 2 weeks. We've gotten them all under contract on the first day, and I think 4 of the 6 we got multiple offers on. So that market's probably as hot or hotter than any other spring market. But I think that's more of a function of a lack of supply than a huge demand.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Does anybody on the call today have commercial properties? I do think if you've got commercial properties and you have tenants that are restaurants, you have tenants that are gyms, you have tenants that are hotels, office space, then that's a big challenge. If you don't, then that's good. I have friends that do. And that's a hurting asset class right now. So I'm not sure I can help you, but if you need some help in those areas, let us know as well. Anybody have, I'm gonna go ahead and close this out. It's been an hour and a half. Holy cow, I did not know it was this long. Anybody else have any final comments, tips? Share a book you've been reading. I told you guys to bring something to the meeting because the more you give, the more you receive. And the more you give, the better it helps your mindset. So tell us something you've done, learned, read, something you're grateful for, whatever it is. It'll help us all feel better.
Hey, Jim, I got one right here. Failing Forward. Got to get this book. It's really, really good.
John Maxwell is a great author, one of my favorites. And I have not read that book, John, so thank you. Failing Forward. I love it. Seeds of Greatness. Awesome. Great. Keep putting them in. All right, guys.
While we're looking at that, I just want to make a comment. I think a lot of us have become very appreciative of 2 kinds of workers out there, and one is healthcare workers, certainly, and the other is teachers. For those of you who had kids that had to do learning at home, so thank your teachers. And if you see medical workers, everybody buys, the dinner or a drink for, the military, which is entirely appropriate. But basically, I'm thinking that people ought to do the same for healthcare workers if they notice them at a restaurant or something. can identify them as
Oh
such.
my gosh.
I just wanted to put that out there.
Wouldn't that is a great share, Quincy, because imagine like how nice it would be to be able to go to, when we could go to a restaurant again, or somebody's in line and you're able to, you know, pay for their meal or something without them knowing that you did it. Those random acts of kindness are going to be well spent. So that's a great tip. Ellie, I'm getting your private messages and completely agree. Thank you. And if you guys don't know Ellie and Corey, you should. They're doing a great job here in Richmond. Anybody else? Patty Cabbage, good to see you on here. Elle Cook and so many others that Carly. Well, Carly, it's wonderful to see you. Are you doing okay?
Hey, Jim. Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you?
I am good. It's good to see you. Rudy Willis in San Jose, good to see you on here again. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and close out, but you want to do this again in a couple weeks? It's our third one. Quincy, we can't get together with you and like give you a big hug, but I'm telling you, you've made an impact on my life and a lot of others here. Actually, quite a few of you guys that are on Zoom today, I could say that about. So I want to just say thank you to all of you. But we can't see you in person, Quincy, but it's good to see you on Zoom.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm glad I'm able to be here, and I look forward to doing other Zooms and eventually getting back to some big space where we can all be together. It'll be a hug fest for sure.
The old days, right? I mean, think about it, guys. All of you guys that were a deal maker with me February 6th to 8th, wasn't that long ago. And then after that, like life changed that quick. Black Swan arrived. And we talked about market shifts, David Phelps and other people, Michael Zuber for two, and how to prepare during this. And Tom Berry, you guys remember that? Get ready for it, everybody said, because you know all the writing was on the wall. It just took a black swan to accelerate it. All right, guys, I will go ahead, Quincy.
I said, have a good one, everyone.
All right, guys, we'll see you guys later. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll send you the replay also. See you guys later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See ya.